Have you spent so long living for others that you forgot your own life? Not out of fear, but out of loyalty. Loyalty to the role you were given, to the expectation you wore like a second skin, to the voice that told you love is proven through silence, sacrifice, and self-erasure. There is a kind of exhaustion that doesn't come from effort, but from the repetition of an invisible act, the act of disappearing. Little by little, almost imperceptibly, you begin to fade from your own choices, replacing desires with concessions, will with politeness, boundaries with favors. And from so much pleasing you become small, so small you fit anywhere, yet occupy nothing. Imagine a teacup always full, but never for yourself, always poured for others, until one day, even as you try to give, nothing comes out. Because what sustains care also needs care, and no one ever taught you that. You spent decades trying to earn a place that was already yours, saying yes, as if asking to be loved. And now, standing at the final bend in the road, you wonder, who would have stayed by your side if you had said no? That question burns, but it also lights the way. It marks the beginning of another time, the time to return. Have you also given so much of yourself that you forgot who you were? Have you emptied yourself trying to be enough? Then maybe this story is yours too. And maybe, just maybe, it's not too late to rewrite the ending. Living to please is a disguised way of disappearing. At first, it looks like virtue, kindness, empathy, devotion. But over time, it becomes addiction. An addiction to acceptance, a delicate desperation to be needed, to not be left behind. You learn to read others like an emotional radar, anticipating frustrations, filling voids, rescuing silences. And in this constant effort, you stop listening to yourself. You become deaf to your own soul. There's a kind of person who walks into a room and instantly knows what everyone else needs. But no one ever asks what they feel, because they themselves have forgotten how to answer. That's not empathy, it's self-forgetting. Inside those who live to please dwells the archetype of the invisible presence, a luminous being yet almost transparent, who moves through days like a flame disguised as service. It lives in those who serve the fullest plate, but eat last. In those who listen to everyone but are never heard. In those who smile on the outside while crumbling within. This archetype doesn't ask for anything. It simply observes. It watches as you hand over your soul in small, daily, imperceptible pieces. And still, the question echoes, will they see me now? But no one sees those who dissolve. No one hears those who echo others. And the more you please, the less you exist. Eventually, the body tires. But the spirit had already been exhausted for decades. And it's there in that collapse that truth begins to bleed. Pleasing too much is the subtle art of losing yourself slowly. There comes a moment when there's no one left to please. The children have gone their own way. The lovers have aged or left. The faces you once protected are no longer in the room. And suddenly you find yourself alone, standing before a mirror that asks what remains of you after a life lived for others. It's in that moment the whole house becomes a metaphor. The cabinet full of folded towels saved for guests who never came. The fine china untouched for decades, waiting for occasions that never arrived. The photo frames smiling into a past where you had already disappeared. Every corner, every object points to an absence disguised as love. The archetype of the silent mother, even when you've never had children, roams these rooms. She needs no offspring to exist. She is the inner figure who nurtures, gives, anticipates what no one asked for. And deep down, all she ever wanted was to be chosen in return. But she never was. And now time begins to collect its debt, not with cruelty but with clarity. Because what hurts isn't solitude. It's the realization that you were never truly accompanied. Only surrounded by roles, duties, and expectations. You spent your life trying to be needed. Now more than anything, you need to be true. True to your desires, your flaws, your boundaries. True to the sacred right of not being everything to everyone, and still being enough for yourself. At some point, saying no for the first time feels like heresy. Then, like relief. And later, like a seed. Not a bitter, vengeful no, but a no that rises from a body tired of being bypassed. A no that protects, that defines, that slowly sketches the edges of a territory called me. In that moment, something dormant stirs. Small, almost invisible, but alive. It is the ember. The one that survived decades of concessions. The one that remained even when you reduced yourself to roles, titles, and functions. It doesn't shout, it doesn't demand, but it pulses. And it's that ember that begins to guide the small returns, sitting down to eat without rushing, saying what you think without the fear of disappointing, leaving earlier, choosing what you wear, taking a deep breath before answering. It gives you back, piece by piece, the right to exist without having to justify each gesture through usefulness. This is the hidden strategy of those who are tired of pleasing, returning inward, not with bitterness but with presence, not as an escape, but as an arrival into yourself. Because the world may still expect you to be everything, but you no longer have to disappear to be loved. You only need to be whole, even if no one else understands. What I've learned after 80 years of pleasing everyone is that the kind of love we miss most is the one we denied ourselves. The love we didn't give because we thought we didn't deserve it, because it felt selfish, because it always had to come last. But the soul, in time, remembers. And it doesn't scream in anger. It speaks through absence, through the quiet ache of not knowing who you are when no one needs you anymore. I've learned that pleasing can be beautiful, but only when it comes from a heart full, not from one begging to belong. That true care only exists when it doesn't cost you your existence. That no one feels loved by someone who disappears, only served. I've learned that there is dignity in choosing yourself, that it's not too late to come back, that even in a tired body, there is still beauty in rising to say, now it's my turn. My turn to listen to myself, to welcome myself, to allow. Because you don't have to dim your light for others to shine. You don't have to shrink to be good. You only have to be whole, even if no one else understands. If this touched something in you, write in the comments. Now it's my turn. Share this with someone who spent a lifetime forgetting themselves. Subscribe to keep walking with us, in silence, through the shadow years.